I apologize if it's noisy. I'm outside downtown. My special group discussion topic this term was prescription drug misuse, and before I went into that, I wanted to talk about what exactly substance use disorder is. I found a quote from one of our articles this term that says substance use disorder is a heterogeneous condition characterized by the recurrent use of one or more substances that results in harm, distress, or impairment. Heavy and prolonged substance use is associated with a range of consequences, including physical, psychological, social, and economic problems. Reasons for substance use are usually substance dependent, but the leading reasons are to cope with negative emotions, to promote social engagement, to feel positive affect, as well as other reasons. Prescription drug misuse is a form of substance use disorder characterized by continuous disordered use of classes of drugs doled out by the medical system deemed to have medical uses but used out of line with regulations and symptom management. The three most pervasive classes of prescription drugs that are misused are opioids, depressants or sedatives such as benzodiazepines, and stimulants. The most common opioids and benzodiazepines and stimulants are listed on this slide. And they are most commonly used to avoid negative feelings, mismanage pain symptoms, and when socializing. I wanted to briefly go into addressing the opioid crisis, which is a public health crisis that has risen in severity in the last 10-20 years. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, over 75% of overdose deaths in 2001 involved an opioid, and drug overdose deaths were 6 times higher in 2021 than they were in 1999. This is due in large part to overprescription of opioids and misuse of synthetic opioids such as fentanyl. A common theme I've been interested in throughout this term is how drugs and substances can be used to cope with stress and negative emotion, yet prolonged drug use can increase stress in other realms of life, and how difficult it can be to stop even when you know that something is hurting you. This brings me to my 3 studies, the first of which is called Restructuring Hedonic Dysregulation in Chronic Pain and Prescription Opioid Misuse. So this article posited that persistent high-volume drug use leads to hedonic homeostasis dysregulation, in which drug use becomes enmeshed with and more salient than natural reward systems, and natural rewards feel less meaningful while drug rewards feel more essential. And this can lead to a loss of control in our behavior because our motivations are dysregulated. And so to ignite change in the brain circuitry responsible for this dysregulation, mindfulness-oriented recovery enhancement or more was suggested. It is suggested that it helps break through thought patterns and change positive associations with drug use to more realistic views. And the practice involves reorienting to the current moment, focusing on sensory information, and reconnecting with the positives of non-drug activities. I thought it was exciting. This study went into some treatment methods, and so to find an empirical basis for such treatment methods, a randomized controlled study of chronic pain patients who reported opioid misuse received 8 group work sessions and were instructed to practice coping skills at home. Patients were tested on their heart rate variability when exposed to visual aids demonstrating an array of topics from opioids to neutral stimuli to pain, to see how their heart rate changed when exposed. And then patients who had undergone the more treatment showed less variability in heart rate and reported lower drug cravings and less pain than before treatment, showing that they had more emotional regulation after such treatment. My next study, conducted by the same researchers and using a similar model of testing heart rate variability, was entitled Deficits in Autonomic Indices of Emotional Regulation and Reward Processing Associated with Prescription Opioid Use and Misuse. Again, chronic pain patients with a record of opioid prescriptions were tested with the hypothesis that regular opioid misuse is detrimental to allostatic or adrenal regulation and interrupts or lessens the feelings of positive affect. through a heart rate variability test. They were the chronic pain patients were given emotional regulation tasks, and they found that there was less heart rate variability for both positive and negative affect during tasks in opioid misusers, showing that opioid use impacts emotional regulation and harms top-down cognition, which might help regulate bottom-up physiological processes, and shows that emotional regulation should be a larger part of our future research of prescription drug misuse. My next article is pretty beautifully titled, "Where There Are Stars, There Is Also Darkness." This article focused on how drug use starts as an attempt to find pleasure and escape negative feelings until drug use becomes a source of negative feelings. As I mentioned before, interviews were conducted on 14 young Icelandic men, self-reporting their experiences with drug use, and themes from the interviews were analyzed. The themes found were reasons for use, onset factors, continuation of drug use despite detriment, and influential factors in why they may have started. And then reasons for use were reported as pleasure-seeking or avoidance of negative feelings, and continued drug use was described as unwanted patterns they were unable to break, lying to doctors to acquire these drugs, perhaps going to the black market and illegally procuring them, and losses in parts of life. Sorry, I know I'm over time and it's loud, but I just wanted to really quickly mention some work that's being done in Oregon to address the opioid crisis, which was recently it was codified into law that all patients leaving hospitals, clinics, and inpatient facilities for opioid use issues are to be given at least 2 doses of Narcan, which is a narcotic used to treat drug overdoses, to take home upon their release, and I thought that was really exciting. Thank you.